Clyburn, Democrat from South Carolina. Thank you for joining us and your thoughts today on the debate over the CBO report.
Well, thank you so much for having me. Well, I think that what we have to do is remember one thing. There's a big difference in losing a job and leaving a job. And I think that what the CBO report says to us is that a number of people will be leaving their jobs, not because they are being pushed out, but because for the first time in their lives, they now have choices that they can make. They can choose to stay on a job if it's a productive job they feel good about, rather than to be hostage to a work environment only because you need it to have benefits. So the Affordable Care Act is providing a plethora of choices for people that they never had before, and because of these choices, they will be a bit more mobile in the workplace. And if you really look at the report, that is what the conclusion is. Mm-hmm. More people will be leaving work rather than losing their jobs.
Yeah, and Congressman, I hear you speaking about choice. That is part of what any health care regulation is going to do, is affect how people make choices. Senator Rand Paul has, as you might expect, a very different view here, that this is forcing macroeconomic choices that have a lot of costs. Take a listen to what he said.
What we've always said is that Obamacare adds a cost to employment, and if you increase the cost of employing someone, you will cause unemployment. So if 2 million people won't get their jobs because of Obamacare, economists also say another million people may be prevented from getting a job because we have to manage such an enormous debt.
Is he wrong on the facts there?
I think so. The fact of the matter is there are people. And let me give one good example. There's a lady who works for the company that has a contract to maintain the building that my district office is in. I just got an incredible handwritten letter from her when I went home last weekend telling me about what the Affordable Care Act has done for her. She is working where there aren't any benefits. She was paying out of that job for her monthly benefits, and she has a pre-existing condition. She's had her monthly bill cut in half, and for the first time, she's got free preventive care, and she is thanking God for Obamacare and those who made it possible. So you can go through and find anecdotes of people who are having cancellation letters and other things sent to them, but we don't get much reports from the people like I just mentioned, and that is what we have to do. If we talk to people who are being impacted positively by this, it just won't make headlines. The headlines are made when there's contention and people see negative kind of results. That seems to sell.
No, Congressman, I understand that, and there's certainly no doubt that conflict and bad news often get a lot more attention than the daily workings of it. I want to turn as well to the Voting Rights Act, an issue that you've championed and led on. As you know, your colleagues, Congressman Conyers and Sensenbrenner, have a bill out just last month to try to respond to the Supreme Court. You've been a leader on this, so we know where you stand. But what about your counterpart, Eric Cantor? I want to read something he said regarding his trip to Selma. My experience with John Lewis in Selma this year was a profound experience, demonstrating the fortitude it took to advance civil rights and ensure equal protection for all. I'm hopeful Congress will put politics aside, as we did on that trip, and find a reasonable path forward and ensures that the sacred obligation of voting in this country remains protected. Can you update us on your outreach or discussions there? Because a lot of people think if Cantor makes good on that pledge, it can get this bill to the floor.
Well, I want to thank Jim Sensenbrenner and John Conyers for working so closely and so diligently on this issue. This is an issue that's fundamental to our way of life, and it is something that we ought to take seriously. The Supreme Court, when it rendered this decision, a decision which I disagreed with, irrespective of that, I have to live with. They said to us, Okay, Congress, go at it. You can update this formula, and you're free to do so. So Congress, through Sensenbrenner and Conyers and others, has responded to this, and we've come up with a product which I think is very, very good. Now, I saw the Wall Street editorial on yesterday, which I think is very, very disingenuous. All we are saying here is that when you demonstrate that you are not being fair by people, you'll be covered. Now, the old law automatically covered about 9 states, 7 to 9, based upon how you defined it. This one covers 4, and it says to people that these are the incentives you have not to ever be covered. But if you violate this, then you will be covered.
Right.
So what's wrong with that? It's a good law. I hope that we can come together, and I hope that Eric Cantor will, as the leader of the Republicans, put this bill on the floor and let us have an up or down vote.
Well, and I think that's the question, Congressman. He spoke movingly about his time with John Lewis and Selma. People talk a lot about these anniversaries and Martin Luther King and that legacy. This is a time to look at a law that Martin Luther King, of course, helped get on the books. Congressman James Clyburn, thanks for talking to us today.